The courtroom sat in a rare kind of stillness, the kind that settles only when something is about to go terribly wrong. Judge Caprio had barely begun reading the charge when a sharp, mocking laugh cut through the air like a blade. Every head turned. The oil tycoon woman, wrapped in luxury and dripping with entitlement, leaned back in her chair as if the entire room existed for her amusement. She flicked her wrist, let her oversized designer purse drop onto the table with a thud, and rolled her eyes as though the proceedings were nothing more than an inconvenient commercial break in her day. "Let's not waste my time. Judge, I have more important things to do," she said, her voice cool and practiced, like someone used to getting her way long before the conversation even started. A ripple of shock moved through the gallery. A man in the back whispered, barely able to contain his disbelief. Does she not know who she's talking to? Even the court officer shifted uneasily. Unsure whether to intervene or simply let the moment play out, Judge Caprio didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the gavel. He simply lifted his eyes, calm and steady, the way a man does when he's watched storms roll in before, but never one quite like this. His silence carried more weight than any threat could. The tension thickened, rising slowly. It's like heat shimmering off summer asphalt, but no one, and I mean no one, expected Judge Caprio to respond the way he did next. Whispers erupted the moment her voice cut through the courtroom. People recognized her instantly, not from charity galas or glossy magazine covers, but from the controversies that trailed her name like a shadow. This wasn't just any defendant. This was the heiress to one of the largest oil empires in the country, a dynasty known for shaping policy behind closed doors, funding political careers, and silencing entire investigations with a single wire transfer. Her family's reach stretched from state houses to Capitol Hill, and everyone in that room knew it. She owned senators, someone murmured. Leaning in, as if afraid the walls themselves might be listening, another voice followed, hushed but trembling with awe. She pays for private jets like they're Ubers. A third asked the question, hanging heavy in the air. Why is she even here? It was a fair question. People like her didn't stand in lines, didn't wait their turn, didn't answer to the law unless it suited them. The fact that she was physically sitting in this modest municipal courtroom felt surreal, like witnessing a celebrity wander into a corner grocery store. But her presence wasn't the miracle, her attitude was the warning sign. Because the charge that brought her here wasn't glamorous or dramatic, it was simple, speeding through a school zone, endangering children who had nothing but crosswalk paint between them and her luxury SUV. On paper, it should have been a routine case. A fine, maybe a stern warning, but the moment she dismissed the judge with that arrogant smirk, the story transformed. This was no longer about a traffic violation. It was about something much larger. Whether the scales of justice still mean anything when weighed against the mountain of wealth one person controls? News outlets had already begun circling. A local reporter sat in the back row, typing furiously. Social media buzzed with rumors. Americans everywhere, immigrant families, working parents. Young viewers raised on stories of fairness were watching closely. They needed reassurance that the system protected them too, not just the powerful, and soon they would get their answer. But to understand why her arrogance was about to backfire so catastrophically, we need to see who she really is. She had been raised in a world so far removed from ordinary life that even the concept of consequences seemed foreign to her. Her childhood unfolded across sweeping mansions with marble floors, polished daily by people she never bothered to learn the names of. Summers were spent on private islands where staff members moved silently, anticipating her needs before she ever voiced them. Winters were reserved for elite boarding schools where tuition alone could have funded an entire public library. In every environment, the message was the same. She was untouchable. People didn't tell her no. They didn't dare. When she broke curfew, the dean received a donation. When she crashed a sports car, an aide took the blame. When she humiliated a classmate, a PR consultant reframed it as youthful exuberance. Her mistakes didn't follow her. They were erased professionally, surgically, and immediately. Every misstep dissolved under the weight of her family's influence as she grew older. Entitlement hardened into something sharper. A video leaked once, a clip of her berating a line of workers at one of her family's refineries. calling them replaceable and lucky to breathe my air. Public outrage flared briefly, but the scandal disappeared after a strategic donation and a photo op where she pretended to plant a tree. Not long after, an investigation surfaced over her company's environmental violations, polluted water, dying wildlife, a devastated community. Within weeks, investigators went silent. The report buried so deep not even watchdog groups could resurrect it. Then came the rumor whispered in international circles that her family had allegedly paid off officials overseas to secure drilling rights. No one ever proved it because no one ever got close enough. Money built walls, and her family had enough wealth to construct fortresses around every truth. Through it all, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who believed the rules were suggestions meant for others, never for her. She often bragged openly, unfiltered, as if flaunting her impunity was a sport she enjoyed. Fines are just the cost of being rich, she liked to say, laughing at her own audacity. Or, during one interview that resurfaced more times than her PR team could control, judges work for taxpayers, and guess what? I pay more than anyone. It wasn't just arrogance. It was a worldview shaped by unchecked power. She didn't see laws. She saw obstacles to be moved. She didn't see communities. She saw markets to be exploited. To her, wealth wasn't a resource, it was a weapon. And she wielded it ruthlessly, smiling as she did, convinced every door would always open for her simply because she pushed. But the universe had prepared someone who was the complete opposite of her, a man built from humility, compassion, and service. Judge Frank Caprio's story didn't begin in polished courtrooms or neatly pressed robes. It began in a cramped, working-class immigrant neighborhood where the air smelled of Sunday sauce and hard work, and where dignity was the only wealth most families could afford. His parents came to America with calloused hands, heavy hopes, and the belief that if you treated people with respect, the world eventually opened a door for you. Some mornings, young Frank walked to school barefoot because his family couldn't replace his worn shoes until payday. Other days, he carried his lunch in a reused paper bag, patched with tape, but held proudly because his mother had packed it with love. His father worked 2 jobs, mornings sweeping floors, nights hauling crates at the docks. Frank remembered watching him leave before sunrise, the street still dark, knowing he wouldn't return until long after dinner had gone cold. Yet his father never complained. He never cursed his fate. Instead, he taught Frank that a person's worth isn't measured by wealth, but by how they treat the people around them. His mother echoed that lesson each evening as she reminded her children, dignity is something no one can take from you unless you hand it over. Growing up, Frank saw the quiet injustices that threaded through his neighborhood. He saw classmates embarrassed because their families couldn't pay utility bills. He saw shopkeepers talked down to by city officials. He saw hard-working immigrants fined, threatened, or dismissed simply because they didn't speak English well enough to defend themselves. Those moments carved something into him, something fierce, something yearning. A promise formed slowly in his chest. If he ever held authority, he would use it to protect, not to intimidate. Years later, when he became a judge, he carried that promise into every decision. He spent decades in public service, never seeking fame, never chasing power. He believed justice wasn't about punishment, it was about understanding. When a single mother appeared in his courtroom, juggling 2 jobs and a toddler on her hip, he didn't see a violator. He saw a person trying her best in a world stacked against her. He listened gently, smiled warmly, and gave her more compassion than many people had ever given her before. When a struggling veteran broke down in front of him, ashamed of the mistakes he'd made after returning home, Caprio didn't lecture. He stepped off the bench, put a hand on the man's shoulder, and said, "You've already given more to this country than most of us ever will." There were countless moments like that. A frightened teenager who thought one ticket would ruin his future. A grandmother who apologized for being alive long enough to forget a parking sign. Caprio treated each of them with the same humanity he saw in his own parents, his own neighbors, his own reflection. In his courtroom, no one was invisible. To the public, he became something rare. A judge whose decisions felt less like punishments and more like lessons wrapped in kindness. He built his legacy not through strictness, but through sincerity. Not through superiority, but through empathy. In a world often dazzled by wealth and power, he remained grounded, steady, and quietly extraordinary. And that's why what happened next. This clash of worlds carried the emotional weight of two opposite lives finally colliding. The camera cuts sharply back to the courtroom, the tension thicker now, the air carrying an unspoken electricity. Judge Caprio adjusts his glasses, ready to proceed, but before he can speak, the oil tycoon woman lifts her chin with casual defiance. She waves her hand dismissively, as if brushing away an inconvenience. "Just write the fine," she says. "Loud enough for everyone to hear?" Then she smirks, a slow, practiced smirk. "I'll pay triple and walk out." A ripple of disbelief moves across the courtroom. A couple sitting in the second row exchange glances. Someone in the back whispers, "She didn't just say that." But Caprio doesn't flinch. Calmly, evenly, he replies, "Ma'am, this is a courtroom, not a marketplace." His voice isn't loud, but it lands with the weight of a gavel. The woman's smirk tightens. She leans forward, one hand on her expensive leather bag. "Do you know who my family is?" She snaps, "I fund half the city. My father built this town with his money. People like you should be thanking me, not lecturing me." A sharp gasp slices through the room. Even the court officers shift uncomfortably. This isn't just disrespect anymore. It's arrogance wrapped in entitlement. But Caprio, he remains still, not irritated, not insulted, just steady. He folds his hands together. "Your family's contributions," he says quietly, "do not place you above the law." The woman laughs, a cold, short, humorless sound. "Please. Everything in this building exists because people like us donate. Don't pretend you have authority over me." This time, Caprio finally leans forward. The room freezes. Not because he looks angry, but because he looks resolute. The kind of resolute that comes from decades of fairness, decades of service, decades of understanding the real meaning of justice. His voice softens and somehow becomes even more powerful. "Ma'am, authority does not come from wealth. It comes from responsibility." The courtroom goes silent. Even she stops smiling, because for the first time, she senses something shifting, something she can't control with money or influence. She has no idea what's coming. Cliffhanger transition. But she had no idea that Caprio was about to deliver a truth so powerful that it would shatter her confidence in seconds. The courtroom is silent now, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy kind that feels like the moment before thunder strikes. The oil tycoon woman sits stiffly, her lips pressed tight, still trying to appear unbothered. But something in her posture has shifted. Her shoulders no longer sit as high. Her fingers grip the straps of her expensive handbag just a little too firmly. Judge Caprio notices everything. He's watched thousands step into his courtroom. He can read guilt, fear, pride, and arrogance with the ease of a seasoned storyteller reading a familiar tale. And in her eyes, beneath the confidence she tries desperately to maintain, he sees something else. A crack, a tiny tremor, a sign that the facade is about to crumble. Caprio clears his throat softly and begins with a voice so calm, so measured that it almost unnerves her. "Let's start with something simple," he says. "Why were you speeding in a school zone?" She rolls her eyes. "I already told you. I was running late." But Caprio doesn't move. "Running late for what?" She hesitates. Not because she doesn't have an answer, but because suddenly the answer feels childish under the weight of the question. "A business meeting," she mutters. Caprio nods thoughtfully. "And that meeting was more important than the safety of children crossing the street?" Her jaw twitches. She wasn't prepared for this angle. "Don't twist my words," she snaps. But Caprio continues, still composed. "So let me ask again. Why were you speeding in a school zone?" A couple of people in the courtroom shift, leaning forward. This wasn't questioning, this was a scalpel. Slicing straight through her excuses, her voice tightens. "Because I didn't think it was a big deal." There it is, the admission. Caprio doesn't pounce on it. Instead, He lowers his eyes for a moment, as if picturing something far away. There were children in that area, he says quietly. Small children. Young families. Kids who trust the adults around them to follow the rules that keep them alive. Her confidence flickers. Well, nobody got hurt, she argues. Caprio lifts his gaze slowly, and for the first time, his voice sharpens. Not this time. Murmur sweeps through the courtroom. Caprio leans in slightly. Tell me something, he continues. Why do you believe you're above basic safety? Above basic responsibility? She stiffens. I never said that. Your behavior said it for you. Her throat tightens. She swallows hard. The heat of the spotlight, the kind she can't control, begins to build around her. Caprio folds his hands. You think money equals power over the law? Her composure finally starts to slip. I didn't mean it like that. Caprio raises an eyebrow. No. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. Every question is a hammer striking directly against the castle of ego she brought with her. Sweat gathers faintly along her hairline. Her breath shortens. The courtroom feels the shift, the unraveling, the moment entitlement meets accountability. And then Caprio delivers the line that cuts through everything. Your wealth does not elevate you. It only reveals who you are when you think no one can touch you. A low wow escapes someone in the back row. A reporter in the corner types rapidly into his phone. A woman near the front whispers. She needed to hear that. Caprio continues, not with anger, but with a disappointing father's tone. When I was a boy, he says. Reflecting on a distant memory, kids in my neighborhood didn't even have safe streets to walk on. We had to fight for every scrap of security. And today, when the law finally protects children, you treat it like an inconvenience. Her eyes widen, not with anger this time, but something closer to shame. She tries to speak, but her voice cracks. I didn't think. Caprio gently lifts a hand. Exactly. Another wave of murmurs moves across the room. You didn't think? Caprio repeats. Because you assumed your name, your status, and your money would shield you. But in this courtroom, he pauses. Every person in the room leans in. You are just a citizen, and your actions have consequences. The words land like thunder. Her confidence collapses. Her stare drops. To the desk, her shoulders slump. Her breathing stutters. The arrogance that walked so proudly into the courtroom now sits broken under the fluorescent lights. Caprio is not done. He picks up the citation paperwork, reviews it slowly, and sets it back down. You endangered lives, he says. You showed no remorse. And your attitude today makes it clear you believe the law bends for you. She looks up, desperate now. Please. I didn't mean to disrespect, but Caprio shakes his head. This isn't about disrespecting me. It's about disrespecting the people whose safety depends on responsibility you refuse to show. Then comes the masterstroke. The moment that will echo across social media for days. Caprio announces. Clearly and firmly, I am issuing you the maximum fine allowed. Gasps erupt. She freezes. Caprio continues. You will also complete 20 hours of community service. More whispers. And then. You are additionally required to attend a mandatory safety seminar on school zone driving. The oil tycoon woman shoots upright in her seat. You can't do that, she cries. Caprio doesn't blink. Ma'am, justice isn't something you can buy. It's something you must respect. The gallery reacts. Nodding heads, lifted eyebrows. A few people quietly mouthing, wow. One man whispers, she got exactly what she deserved. A court officer suppresses a smirk. The reporter sends another message. This is gold. Absolute gold. The woman sinks back into her chair. Not powerful, not wealthy, not untouchable, just accountable. And Caprio, the judge she tried to belittle, has become the symbol of something she never expected to confront. Real justice, true justice, unpurchasable justice. The moment Judge Caprio's words left the courtroom, the ripples spread faster than anyone could have imagined. A single smartphone camera captured the piercing line, "Justice isn't something you can buy. It's something you must respect." Within minutes, the clip was online, shared, retweeted, reposted, and remixed across every platform imaginable. Twitter erupted first. Hashtags trended nationally within an hour. Hashtag Caprio Justice, hash money can't buy respect, hash oil heiress meltdown. Every feed was alight with the courtroom drama. Users debated, cheered, and replayed the moment endlessly. Some wrote long threads analyzing the exchange, pointing out how rare it was to see true accountability in action. Others posted screenshots of the heiress's stunned expression, captioned with biting humor. The clip became a viral anthem for anyone who had ever felt powerless against wealth or privilege. TikTok quickly joined the frenzy. Creative edits set the judge's voice against dramatic music. Slow-motion shots of the purse drop, and memes comparing the heiress to cartoon villains meeting their match. YouTube reaction channels uploaded commentary videos within the hour, praising Caprio's calm authority and dissecting the moral lessons embedded in his words. Views skyrocketed. Likes, shares, and comments piled up as people debated not only the fine, but what it symbolized, a rare triumph of fairness over entitlement. News networks jumped in, framing it as more than a traffic violation case. Panelists discussed the systemic implications of wealth-shielding wrongdoing, questioning whether America's justice system truly treated all citizens equally. Interviews with lawyers, ethicists, and journalists highlighted the cultural conversations sparked by one courtroom exchange. Celebrities weighed in on social media, further fueling the conversation. Tweets appeared almost simultaneously. Caprio for president. This judge just restored my faith in humanity. Finally, someone reminds the world that accountability matters. Even employees from her own company, speaking anonymously, shared their private relief. Finally, someone talked to her like a human being. Comments poured in from ordinary people across the country: immigrants, working families, students relating to the sense of justice finally served. Each share, each retweet, each meme reinforced a national dialogue about privilege, fairness, and the responsibility that comes with power. 4 days, late-night hosts replayed the clip. Podcasts dissected the heiress's arrogance and Caprio's mastery of moral authority. Memes became shorthand for social media debates. The moment symbolized a battle between hubris and humility, money and morality, entitlement and accountability. It was the kind of viral phenomenon that transcended ordinary news cycles, cementing itself in the collective consciousness. But beneath all the noise, beyond the memes and trending hashtags, one truth remained, a lesson Judge Caprio wanted every American to understand. No matter your wealth, your influence, or your status, respect for the law is not optional. It is the foundation upon which fairness stands. That lesson, powerful and unyielding, would resonate far longer than any viral clip. Judge Caprio looked across the courtroom, his gaze steady but warm, taking in every face, every expression, every fleeting moment of reflection. The oil tycoon woman sat quietly now, her arrogance dissolved into an unfamiliar weight of humility. He spoke not as a magistrate, but as a man who had spent his life understanding the fragile balance between power and responsibility. This courtroom, he began, his voice calm but resonant, is the one place where a billionaire and a janitor, a teacher and a child, a stranger and a neighbor all stand on equal ground. Here, wealth, fame, or influence cannot shield anyone from accountability. Here, actions matter, and respect for the law is the true measure of a person.
Wow.
The room was still. Every ear strained to catch each word. Every heart seemed to pause, suspended between the shock of what had just occurred and the clarity of its meaning. Caprio continued, drawing from the lessons he had learned as a child. Growing up in a community where fairness often had to be fought for, where dignity was sometimes the only inheritance a family could pass down. Justice, he said, does not bend for convenience. It does not favor wealth, nor does it overlook those who struggle to be heard. The law protects everyone, especially the vulnerable only, when when every person recognizes its power and respects it. To ignore that truth is to betray not just the courtroom, but the very principles on which our society is built. The woman's head lowered. For the first time, she looked not at her audience, not at her privileges, but inward, confronting a mirror she had long avoided. The crowd could feel the shift. A collective understanding rippled through them that fairness was not abstract, that morality was not negotiable, and that character mattered more than status. He concluded with a line that would echo far beyond the courthouse walls. If justice bows to money, then justice dies. The simplicity of the statement belied its power. Service, responsibility, respect, and human dignity, all values Caprio had embodied for decades, resonated in the room like a silent anthem. Spectators, reporters, and staff alike understood the lesson. Accountability is universal, and humility is the only true equalizer. As the courtroom emptied, whispers lingered. The moral was clear. In a society obsessed with wealth and influence, it is courage, compassion, and the unwavering belief in equality that define real justice. And for one powerful woman, the lesson had finally arrived. From the moment she walked into the courtroom, dripping with arrogance and entitled confidence, to the instant her smirk faded under Judge Caprio's unwavering authority, the story captivated a nation. We witnessed a clash of worlds. Wealth against humility, power against principle, entitlement against justice. And in that clash, one truth became undeniable. No amount of money can buy respect, and no influence can erase responsibility. The moment Caprio delivered his piercing words, exposing her contradictions and reminding everyone that the law protects all citizens equally, the world took notice. Social media erupted, memes spread, news outlets debated, and ordinary people everywhere felt a spark of validation, a reminder that fairness still matters. This wasn't just a fine, a reprimand, or a viral clip. It was a masterclass in integrity, accountability, and moral courage. And the lesson extends far beyond a single courtroom. It's about our shared responsibility to uphold dignity, to respect the rules that protect the vulnerable, and to remember that true justice is measured not by wealth or status, but by fairness, compassion, and courage. If stories like this remind you why integrity matters, share this video. And if you believe justice should always have a heart, subscribe. This channel is where real stories meet real values, where lessons of accountability, courage, and human dignity are brought to life. The courtroom lights dim, the echoes of the gavel fade, and the heiress leaves, humbled, her lesson learned. But the impact lingers, reaching far beyond these walls. The courtroom lights dim, but the lesson stays with us.